Welcome to The Deep Dive. We're the podcast where we take your source material and really unpack it, aiming to find the most compelling insights.
Exactly. And today we're digging into some, well, really fascinating ancient texts. Specifically, bits from something called the Bandhanāgāravatthu.
Which translates roughly, I think, to the story of the prison.
That's right. And our mission, if you will, is to explore what bonds or chains actually mean in this tradition.
Yeah, we're looking beyond, the obvious physical stuff.
To uncover these deeper, maybe even kind of surprising kinds of bondage that, well, wise people were talking about centuries ago.
It's quite a setup. It kicks off with this very real scene, actual prisoners.
Right.
But then it leads to a teaching that honestly goes somewhere I didn't expect at first. Okay, let's get into it.
So the story starts in a pretty standard setting for these kinds of texts, the Jetavana monastery. The Buddha's staying there.
Okay.
And about maybe 30 monks, give or take, had come from the countryside to visit him.
All right, so they're visitors.
Yeah.
And the next day, they're heading into the city, Savatthi, to collect alms, like they do.
Yep, part of the routine. But they make this detour. They actually go to the prison, the Bandhanāgāra.
Straight into it.
Yeah.
And what did they see there?
Well, it was pretty stark. They saw a lot of robbers. The text is specific: housebreakers, highwaymen, people who ambush travelers, even murderers.
All captured by the king of Kosala.
Exactly. And bound.
And the source material, it gets really detailed about the bonds, doesn't it?
It does. It mentions wooden bonds, think like stocks or yokes, and rope bonds, and also heavy iron chains. These weren't light restraints.
No way. These sound serious.
And the text makes a point of saying these people were experiencing great suffering, really intense physical suffering from these bonds, couldn't escape.
And seeing that raw physical captivity,
Yeah.
That's what sparks the big question, right?
Absolutely. They finish their alms round, go back in the evening,
Yeah.
and you can tell this prison visit really stuck with them. So they approach the Buddha, and they ask him, basically, look, we saw these robbers, bound tight, suffering terribly, no way to cut those bonds. Is there any other bond, Venerable Sir, that's actually stronger than these ones?
Such a pivotal question. They're thinking physically, right? Like, is there some super chain?
You'd assume so. But the Buddha's answer, it flips things immediately. He first acknowledges what they saw, the wood, the rope, the iron.
Okay. Validates their observation.
But then, bam, he shifts.
Yeah.
He introduces this idea of the kilesa bond, the bond of defilement.
Ilisa. And he links that directly to taṇhā, right?
Yeah.
Which is usually translated as craving or maybe thirst.
Exactly. Craving, thirst, intense desire. And he specifies what kind of craving in this context.
Yeah, in wealth, grain, children, wives, and so forth, like everyday things.
Things we often think of as good, or at least necessary. Security, family, possessions. And then comes the comparison that just stops you in your tracks.
This is the part. He says this bond, this internal thing, this craving, is 100-fold, 1,000-fold, 100,000-fold stronger than those physical bonds they just saw.
100,000-fold. Just let that sink in. You see the agony of iron chains, and the teaching is, nope, the real chains, the truly powerful ones, are inside us.
Tied to our desires, our attachment.
And it's described as dukkha, hard to sever, really difficult to cut through.
But here's the twist, the paradox he points out.
Come on.
Even though it's so incredibly tough to break, wise people in the past did manage it.
Right. They actually cut these ties. They let go of everything: family, money, status, the works.
And went forth, became homeless wanderers, seeking liberation. Some even went off to the Himalayas to become ascetics.
Which is pretty extreme dedication, showing how seriously they took this internal bondage.
Definitely. And to really drive this home, the Buddha tells a story.
The attita, the past story, usually involves a previous life of his, right?
Exactly. Back when he was a bodhisattva, someone on the path to becoming a Buddha.
Okay, set the scene.
Ancient India, city of Varanasi.
Yeah.
King Brahmadatta is reigning. But the bodhisattva in this life isn't royalty. He's born poor.
Humble beginnings.
Very. His dad dies when he's young, so he has to support his mother, working for wages. Duty, hardship.
Okay.
Then another layer gets added. His mother, kind of against his own wishes, it seems, arranges a marriage.
Yeah.
Brings a young woman from a, quote, good family into the home as his wife.
So more responsibility, another tie.
Yep. And later, his mother passes away too, so it's just him and his wife.
And things get even more complicated.
They do. His wife gets pregnant, a new life is coming, a future child.
The ultimate bond, some might say.
Right. And around this time, the bodhisattva feels this strong urge, this pull towards renunciation, freedom of a different kind.
He wants out.
Yeah. But he doesn't know she's pregnant yet, so he says to her, look, good woman, you can manage working for wages. I need to go forth. I'm going to become an ascetic.
Oh, wow. How does she react?
Well, her plea really underlines the power of this bond. She says something like, my lord, but I'm pregnant. A being is established in my womb. Please wait. After I give birth, once you've seen the child, then you can go forth.
Using the child as the reason to stay. A powerful emotional appeal.
Totally. And he agrees. He thinks, okay, fair enough. I'll wait. Says very well.
But the story isn't over, is it? It shows how these things multiply.
Exactly. She gives birth. Baby arrives safely. And he says, okay, good woman, you've delivered safely. Now I'll go forth.
And does he?
Almost immediately, she conceives again. Another child is on the way.
Wow. So he's trapped, essentially.
That's how he sees it. He thinks, okay, this isn't working. I'm never going to get her consent. This bond, it's just too strong to break by agreement.
So what's his plan B?
I'll have to run away, he decides. Go forth without telling her. Drastic measures.
So he actually does it.
Yeah. Middle of the night, gets up quietly, doesn't say a word, and just runs.
But he gets caught.
He does.
Yeah.
City guards grab him.
And what happens then? There's that slightly odd detail in the source, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. He identifies himself by saying, my lords, I am one who supports his mother. Please release me.
Even though his mother had already passed away earlier in the story.
Right. It's a bit strange. Maybe it reflects like a cultural value about looking after parents, or maybe just how past identities stick. Hard to say for sure.
But the point is, they let him go based on that.
The source says they did. They released him.
And he doesn't go back home?
Yup. He's free in a way. He finds a place, heads off to the Himalayas, and properly goes forth into asceticism, isipapaja.
And he makes progress.
Big time. The text says he develops avinya, supernormal powers, and samapati, deep meditative states. He finds this profound peace, just dwelling in the pleasure of meditation.
So he achieved the kind of freedom he was seeking.
Seems so. And while he's in that state, having finally cut those really powerful worldly ties,
Yes.
he has this spontaneous utterance in Udana that just sums it all up perfectly.
What does he say?
Indeed, this bond of children and wife, this bond of defilement, which was so incredibly hard for me to cut, it has been cut.
Wow. Even him, a bodhisattva, admits how incredibly difficult that specific bond, children and wife, was to break.
It really emphasizes the point, doesn't it? It's not easy, even for someone spiritually advanced.
No kidding. Okay, so the Buddha tells this whole story to the monks.
Right, brings it back to their original question about the prison.
Yeah.
He recounts the bodhisattva's struggle and his final realization.
And then delivers the key teaching in verse form, the Gatha.
Yes, and these verses draw that sharp distinction. They start by saying, wise people, the dhira, they do not call bonds made of iron, wood, or grass, meaning rope, strong.
Directly addressing the monks' initial focus on the physical prison.
Okay, so what did the wise ones consider a strong bond?
It's the attachment, the apaka, it's the craving, the taṇhā.
And described so vividly, deeply colored with lust, saratarata, intense desire.
For what specifically?
Things like jewels, earrings, material wealth.
Yeah.
But also, crucially, for sons and wives. Family ties again.
So this inner pull, this intense wanting, that's the real chain.
According to the wise, yes. And the verses give it these three kind of paradoxical characteristics.
Okay, what are they?
It's described as dragging down oharane,
Uh-huh.
loose, sitala,
Loose, okay.
and hard to get free from, dupamunika.
Dragging down, loose, and hard to get free from. Let's unpack those, maybe using that commentary you mentioned.
Good idea. First, who are these wise ones, the Diya?
The commentary clarifies, doesn't it? It's not just, smart people.
Right. It specifies enlightened beings, Buddhas, essentially. So this perspective comes from the highest level of understanding in this tradition. It's not just an opinion.
That definitely adds weight. Okay, so term number 1, dragging down oharana. How does an internal feeling drag you down?
Well, the commentary is pretty blunt. It says this bond literally pulls you down into the 4 lower realms.
Which in this worldview are space of suffering, right? Bad rebirths.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's not just feeling a bit bummed out. It has serious spiritual consequences, potentially trapping you in cycles of unhappiness, making progress really difficult.
Wow. Okay. Now, the really intriguing one. Loose. Sicily. How can the strongest bond possibly be loose? That seems contradictory.
This is the genius of it, the sneaky part. The commentary's description here is amazing.
Lay it on me.
Unlike iron chains, it says this bond doesn't cut your skin. It doesn't tear flesh or muscle. Doesn't draw blood.
Okay, so it doesn't hurt physically.
Right. And here's the kicker. It doesn't even let you know you're bound while you're doing stuff. You can walk around, work, travel by land or water, live your life.
So it feels like freedom. You can function completely normally.
Exactly. It feels like freedom while it's binding you. That's the insidious thing about attachment, isn't it? You think you're just living, pursuing happiness, building a life.
But you're actually tethered, unknowingly held back from, well, true liberation or deeper peace.
Man. So it's loose because it's subtle. It doesn't cause obvious immediate pain, but it's still a bond because it restricts your ultimate freedom.
That's a powerful insight. Okay, and the third one, hard to get free from, dupamunika.
This one also has a great analogy in the commentary.
Oh, yeah.
It says, once this bond of defilement, born from greed, attachment, whatever, once it arises, even just once, getting free from that binding point is incredibly difficult. It's like trying to extract a tortoise.
A tortoise, like from its shell, or one that's clamped onto something.
Yeah, exactly that feeling. Trying to pull it out, trying to dislodge it when it's clamped down tight. It resists, it digs in, it retreats.
That's a fantastic image. It really captures that internal struggle against something deep-seated, tenacious, that doesn't want to let go.
Totally. It sticks with you.
And the verses end on a note of hope, right? Echoing the Bodhisattva.
They do. The final line says that even this bond, this incredibly strong, dragging down, deceptively loose, and ridiculously hard to get free from bond.
Yes.
The wise do cut it. They manage it.
And how do they live afterwards?
Having cut it, they are anapikino, without expectation, without longing. And they paribhayanti, they wander forth, free. Having truly abandoned kamasukhan, the pleasure that comes from desires.
They cut the inner chain, not just escaping a physical cell.
Precisely. And what was the effect of the Buddha laying all this out for those monks?
Well, the sources say that by the end of the teaching, many listeners made real spiritual progress. Some even reached the fruit of stream entry.
Just from hearing this.
Apparently, suggests that simply understanding the true nature of bondage, seeing it clearly, it can be profoundly liberating in itself. A major shift in perspective.
Okay, so let's pivot to us, to you listening today. We see chains in the world, poverty, injustice, literal prisons, that they're obvious. But how do our own attachments, maybe to our phones, our online image, our job title, our stuff, even the expectations wrapped up in relationships, how do they act like these loose but hard to break bonds the text describes?
That's the crucial question, isn't it? We go about our days seemingly free, working, socializing, doing our thing.
Yeah, feels normal.
But could we be tethered in ways we don't fully recognize? Ways that actually limit our deeper well-being or freedom? These texts are basically saying the strongest prison bars aren't external.
They're internal, forged from our own craving, our own attachments.
And this understanding, this deep dive into seeing craving as the real chain. The text calls it the nekagena, the sword of knowledge.
The tool needed to cut these bonds.
Exactly. It starts with the insight, with seeing the chains for what they are, even when they feel comfortable or maybe even pleasurable.
So we've journeyed quite a distance here, from monks looking at a physical prison in ancient India,
all the way to the subtle, complex workings of our own minds and hearts today, guided by this centuries-old wisdom.
And the core insight is, well, it's pretty stark. The chains that bind us most powerfully aren't iron or rope.
They're woven inside us, from desire, from attachment.
And they feel loose,
right?
Because they don't necessarily cause immediate physical pain. They let us function.
But ultimately, they drag us down, keep us stuck. And like that tortoise, man, they are hard to shake off once they've got a grip.
And here's maybe the most fascinating part for me.
Yeah.
The idea that simply understanding this teaching, really hearing it, was enough to spark liberation for some of those original listeners. Like the knowledge itself starts to loosen the chains.
The power of insight.
Exactly. So here's a final thought, maybe something provocative for you to mull over after this.
Okay.
What are the loose but hard to get free from bonds operating in your life right now? Not just the obvious problems, but the subtle attachments. And what might it actually take to see them clearly, not just intellectually get it, but really see them in a way that allows you to start, maybe gently beginning to cut free?